Next to me I have Dr. Noorzalina Mohd Noor, who's Head of Education for Mara Group in Malaysia. Next to Dr. Noor, we have David Wilson, who's the Director of Asian Schools for GEMS. And David's filling in at very short notice. Thank you, David. Next to David, we have Mari Jane Liban, who's Executive Director for Monark Foundation Institute in the Philippines. And next to Jane, we have from South Korea, Chancellor Namsik, who heads up Kaywon University in South Korea. So welcome to our panel members. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
What I'd like to do is to start our session just with a very sort of brief snapshot of this broad region, which is quite ill-defined. It depends where you look at what is encompassed by. Firstly, it's a very diverse region with culture, heritage, and of course a lot of natural beauty, and a lot of people would associate with that region. If we take, well, first of all, in the region, we have some of the fastest growing economies in the world. It's recognised globally that the Asia-Pacific Rim area is a very important area for the world economy. And it says it accounts for over 40% of the world's economic growth. If we look at one small part of the region, ASEAN, whose members include Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. In that group of countries alone, there's 607 million people, and there's a GDP. A GDP of $2.3 trillion. If we then include India and China, that takes it to over 3 billion people and 14 trillion GDP. So it's a very diverse region, obviously. Countries have their own culture and heritage and are in different places in their development. So to generalise is very dangerous, but I thought there are some fairly common themes that come from many of the countries within the region with regards to education. So for the purpose of this morning, I've tried to capture some of those issues that you seem to hear a lot across the region. Now clearly, not every country in the region has those same issues, but some have some of those issues, and maybe our speakers today, when they give a brief overview of their countries, they may reflect on these points and say whether or not any of those are relevant in their countries. So one common challenge that is constantly talked about in many of the countries is the pedagogy. That a traditional approach to pedagogy is largely in place, very teacher-centred, and countries are working and looking at how they can move more towards a student-centred paradigm of teaching and learning. Teacher quality is another thing that a lot of countries seem to be wrestling with, because they recognise this issue of teachers engaging students. They realise that they've got to train the teachers that they currently have, who have come through a system where they're used to teaching for tests and being teacher-centred. They now realise there's a great need to support and develop their teachers to be able to cope with the more contemporary pedagogy. In some countries across the region, there's excessive hours of tutoring for students. Parents value education very highly, and in some of the countries there's also still quite a focus on high-stakes tests within the country, even in primary schools and secondary schools. So because the families value education so much, they really support their students, their children, in trying to do well at school, and part of that is a lot of tutoring after school hours and on weekends. Some countries across the region recognise that as an issue, and having different ways of trying to deal with that. Some of the countries in the region are in the lower areas across results for international tests. There's been a strong focus in some countries in the region on university education. Again, because of the high focus on education generally, there's a view that all their children must get to university and get a degree of some kind to be successful. And so that is being identified across some of the countries as an issue in terms of there's not that focus on skills development that we've heard about during the conference. Equity issues exist in some of the countries, especially for the poor and remote and rural areas. It's very difficult for some countries to get quality teachers and even to have the infrastructure in place in some of the more remote parts of countries. With a rapidly growing youth population, as I just mentioned, they're providing enough classrooms as a challenge in some of the countries. Now, many of the governments in the region recognise the challenges, and so they've got them as these things as key focuses, or some of them as key focuses. And as I said, perhaps our panel members might get their view of what's happening there. If I just quickly look at a couple of countries that aren't represented here today, Myanmar, we all know they had the elections in 2010, and there's been enormous changes in the country since then. Aung San Suu Kyi's National League won 42 out of the 44 seats. It's and in this region, which you mentioned, has got some of the fastest growing economies. It remains one of the poorest countries in Asia. There's evidence of widespread poverty and vulnerability, and the basic household income is very, very low. It's off track to reach the Millennium Development Goals. It has natural resources, but in the past, that has only benefited a small section of the country, so that the challenge is to broaden that. They've quadrupled the spending on education since the last election. But there's concern about the skill level because of the isolation of the country, the skill level within its government departments and the capacity to drive the change they need is being identified as a major hurdle. Indonesia, it's experienced strong growth year after year of around about 6%. Despite that, it still hasn't kept pace in terms of employment opportunities. There's a recognition that Indonesia recognises very clearly it needs to invest in human capital, and it's made education its #1 priority for its budget. It's got 20% of its budget dedicated to education, which is a huge amount of money for such a large country. But it identifies its challenges because, as I said, like some other countries across the region, it performs badly in international tests. And here we can see Indonesia. We're going down to the lower scores, and it's compared to Malaysia, one of the very close countries. That's where they sit. Enrolment rates are still behind their neighbours. There's a combination of the terrain, the distance issue. As we know, Indonesia is a very large country and lots of islands, etc. So the challenges they face in putting infrastructure and teachers in remote areas are extreme. And there are structural reforms needed, which they're working on, that are slow to impact on learning outcomes at this stage. So that's just a touch of what is this broad region. And as I said, now I'll invite our panel members to just do a little brief overview of their countries, and we'll have the opportunity to ask questions and explore more about what's happening. So Dr. Noor, would you like to start with talking about Malaysia? Would anyone like the interpretation?
I'll be speaking Hindi.
have to use the microphone. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Can you hear me or prefer we choose my? Thank you, Ray. Good morning, my fellow colleagues. And first and foremost, I would like to say that I'm very honored to be here. When GEMS Education invited me, the first reaction to the invitation is that, why me? Because I'm not from Ministry of Education. I'm from Ministry of Rural and Regional Development. But our involvement in education is large in the sense that we have about 333 institutions under us, and also about 110,000 students. That's a huge number there. And with a workforce of about 10,000 people, where 6,000 are in the education line. So before I go into detail with what my organization does as an insight to the education that we give in Malaysia, I would like to say a bit on the government initiatives that we have in Malaysia. So let's contend what I'm going to say about is the government initiatives, and a bit on the Malaysian education blueprint, and finally about the MARA education and skills program. I'll be skipping over some slides. Hopefully you get what we want to know about Malaysia. Okay, basically, the government initiatives, there are 4 basic initiatives at work right now towards achieving a vision of 2020, where Malaysia aims to be a highly developed nation. And the 4 initiatives that are in play are the One Malaysia concept, where we aim for national unity, irrespective of race, religious belief. The second one that we feel is very important is the government transformation plan, or program, where our role as a civil servant is more demanding. We have to be accountable for what we do, and we hope to form an efficient and people-centered institution. The next one is the economic transformation program, where the government aims to be a highly developed nation a high-income nation by the year 2020. And last but not least, we have the 10 Malaysia plan, where it encompasses all this, including the budget that is involved and the programs. Okay, basically I've already said all this. Let's skip that. Okay, the next one is the Malaysian education blueprint. So starting from this year, they have launched the blueprint, where the main objective is, there's 3 main objectives there. One is to understand the current performance and challenges that Malaysia face. And the next one is to establish a clear vision of where we want to go next. And the third one, of the plans or actions that we need to take. And what we have found out, based on the issues and challenges in drafting the blueprint, is that, I think it move here. First one is the investment in education. The yearly education budget is about 37 million, which is about 60% of the total government spending. The return of investment is not as high as desired, and we feel that the allocation of the fund should go towards teachers' training and upskilling instead of mostly on infrastructure. The second one is improving access to education. As compared to when we achieve independence, half of the population has no formal schooling, and only 6% have secondary education. Now we are at a stage where 77% of the population are in preschool, 96% in primary, and 86% in secondary. As for our next challenge is, how can we develop students holistically? We want them to have the dimension of intellectual, spiritual, and emotional and physical dimension through the academic and curricular activities that we have. And being, like Wayne said, a country that has another region where the cultural values is very high. We believe that the human values are slowly being eroded. So how do we make sure that it's still there in the students that we produce? Okay, the next issue that we recognize is the student cognitive performance. When they took some of the international assessment, for example, the PISA and the TEAMS exam, and we see, even though, WIN has shown that we have performed better than a few other countries, but when we put ourselves against Korea, Singapore, South Korea, Singapore, and China, we're lagging a bit behind there. So we hope to be at the top third level instead of, below the international average. And the next issue or challenges is achieving equitable student outcomes. We have the achievement gap is being controlled or determined by the urban-rural divide that we have. Poorer states with poorer or more rural regions, their academic performance have declined there, and we need to upgrade that. Socio-economic status level, the poor people are performing poorly as compared to the middle income group and the rich group. And also the gender achievement gaps where the girls are overtaking the guys. And they've listed the guys as the lost boys. And also, what do we need to do that? And this is where we see the skills program, technical and vocational education is playing a major role there. And then with a range of schooling options that available, what is happening is that with the multi-ethnic group that we have, there is a separation that's going on, So Chinese with the Chinese group, the Malay with the Malayan religious group, and then the Indian with the Indian school. Because we have schools that are the national schools, which is open to all, and then we have also the national type education, which is for the Chinese and the Indians also. And then we have the private schools, the religious school and the faith school. So these are the problems that we see we are facing. Okay, as you can see that the profile of Malaysian education, the budget is about 37 billion a year. That's 60% of the total federal budget. Enrollment of the students, this is inclusive of the private and the public sector, public education. So it's good enrollment there, but we aim to achieve 100% enrollment by the year 2020. And teachers, we have about 500,000 teachers with about 10,000 schools. It's a huge number there, and then the class size is about 30 per class. So these are the PISA ranking that we had. We did this with from about 14 years old students, if I'm not mistaken. So there are 74 PISA countries taking part in the PISA assessment, and Malaysia is at 57, 55, 52. And for the teams in maths and sciences, we see a decline over the year, and that's a cause of concern for us. It's from 1610, and then now we're at the 20th level, and then for the science, we're at 21 there. I think Mariana can speak a lot about that too. Pardon? Oh, sorry. Okay, so what we want to do, what we're hoping to achieve is that gain access, 100% enrollment for all our students, and then make sure quality-wise, when we participate in assessment, international assessment, we are in the top third of the countries. And equity, we hope to narrow the achievement gaps by the year 2020. And unity, we have a system that caters to all, understand the values and experiences of all. And also we make sure that we have an efficient system to maximize the outcomes. As for students, we want them to achieve the 21st century skills, and these are some of the things that we're looking into. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting. So to transform the education system in Malaysia, we have 11 shifts, and here are some of them, such as access to quality education, make sure that the students are bilingual, they can master Malay and English, and then develop value-driven Malaysian, transform the teaching profession as a profession of choice, and also to ensure that we have high-performing school principals. And the next shift is that we have to empower the state and the district officers, education officers, give them more power of autonomy. And we need to leverage on the ICT and make sure that the ministry deliver what it's supposed to. And here the interesting one is the partner and parents, community, and private sector skill. As I was discussing with Wayne recently, we have the Trust School program. What happened in the Trust School program is that, for example, I take Malay College Kuala Kangsar. It's one of the top boarding schools in Malaysia. What it does is that it forms a foundation called the MCKK Foundation, where the private sectors pump money into the foundation, and with the money they have gained, they are able to build an IB complex for the students and provide the training for the teachers. There's a lot of money that's involved there, and we're happy with that. And the next one is to maximize the students' outcome for every ringgit that we spend, and lastly, to increase the transparency and accountability. For technical and education training, some of the issues that we face are lack of interest, knowledge, and opportunities in the field, and then the failure of the education system to address the industry need, and also the migration of the skilled workers to better job prospects overseas. And in Malaysia, we see that the skilled workers are in the category of 25%, where if we look at the OECD percentage, it should be at 40%. So steps are being taken to rectify that, and hopefully by 2020 we reach the 40% target. So I'm going to speak about the experience of MARA, my organization. It's an organization of trust for the people. It is a semi-government body where the funds are from the government, but we are given more autonomy and freedom to experiment with things. I think that worked out well for us. What MARA has is that we have we're involved in 3 major sectors: education and training, entrepreneurship, and investment. What is meant by here is that for the education and training, we take in students from the secondary level and train them up to pre-university and university level, and ensure that, and it's all funded by the government. So the education there is free there. And for the secondary level, we have the MARA Junior Science Colleges. This is a gifted and talented program. We've worked with counterparts in the UK, in the US, to do this program, and we do send our students for exchange program to all these countries, and they're also involved. How do you assess whether your students are doing well or not? So what we do is that we put them on an international platform and make them compete at this level, and we see how they progress. And then we have the tertiary education, that's we send them overseas sponsors or put them in top 10 universities in the world. And also, we send them for skills or vocational trainings overseas. And for entrepreneurship, this I will not touch. This is basically what we do is that we take small and medium-sized entrepreneurs, give them training, give them sponsorship, financial assistance, and then we have buildings where they can have the business there. So it works like a whole community here. So when these people are successful, they will come and get involved in making sure that, they support the programs that we have here. So that's one thing that really works for us. And there's other initiatives that we have. Secondary education, pre-university, professional. We have the undergraduates, masters, and PhD programs. That's the academic programs, and then the vocational programs. So this is what we aim to achieve. And I'm glad to say that we have achieved quite a lot. They are in the top universities. They are global ranked competent workforce, and they are also potential technopreneurs, in the technical fields, entrepreneurs in the technical fields. So I'm coming to an end. Okay, these are the colleges that we have, 333 with about 110 students. And a bit about the colleges. Okay, we have a university that has a program that's approved by the European Aviation and Safety Agency. So it works in helping them place in the industry market. All right, and impact on the human talent development. We produce about 20,000 yearly. That's about 30%, as needed by the government, which is 66%. Oh, sorry. Okay, and these are some of the students and competitions that they have entered. We send them to Geneva, Houston, Texas, Nairobi, Taiwan to compete. Send them to Geneva, Korea, Bucharest, South Korea. And also we have a partnership or MOU with Germany, Japan, and Ireland, and also with Petronas. These are a few that we have. And these are some of our products. First Malaysian astronaut. And these are all, this is one of the top billionaire in Malaysia. And this is one of the deputy minister. And these are with Shell and with Maybank, if I'm not mistaken. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Noor. I'm sure that very informative snapshot will generate a lot of questions later. I'd like to invite David to talk to us about some insights into the education.
Good morning. You recognise I'm not the minister, but part of the joy of working with GEMS, you never quite know what's going to happen next. So if you forgive me, I won't use the microphone. I hope the room is small enough for my voice to carry. Please let me know if it doesn't. Some of you know me, and some of you have already heard some of the things I'm about to say. I can't make any apology for repetition because I think points about Indian education are worth repeating. I was born in India. I went to school in India, then moved to the United Kingdom with my family, joined the British Army, and just over a year ago completed a full career. The last 5 years of which was acting as Director of Training and Education in the Army, including responsibility for schools, but also training programs and the normal military training that goes on. I wanted to have a follow-on career contributing to Indian education. There was always a feeling of regret for leaving, not being able to make a contribution to the country of my birth. So going back was, and trying to make a contribution was part of that long-held ambition. Unfortunately, I didn't quite make it to India, got stopped in Dubai. But part of my role involves contributing to Indian education, and of course, as Director of Asian Schools, I have 50,000 students attending the various schools we run here, and therefore Indian education is a daily concern, interest, and topic. As I was writing my notes down, by the way, things I was going to talk about, I had to keep scratching them out because Wayne was covering the same points. So the whole region probably has similar challenges, and I'll try not to just repeat the same observations that other people are going to make. And I only have 5 minutes or so anyway. I'll try and concentrate on the things unique to India that stop Indian education being what it needs to be. But before doing that, like many countries, there's some astonishing strengths in Indian education. Incredible India, if you like. Firstly, the students. The students are world class. You can feed an Indian student on a very poor academic diet, and the results are unbelievable. The levels of motivation for the student, the amount of effort they put into it, the value that they give education is really right at the top end of the international scale. Indian parents, if you have a Western model of parental engagement, you talk about trying to get parents interested in the education of their children. Indian parents don't even understand that language. For educators, the challenge is trying to control the tiger mum or the hockey mum or whatever, because quite often the pressure from parents gets to the point where it's not particularly healthy. But the great thing, it is a strength. There is no doubt that Indian parents are deeply committed to supporting the education of their child. You will hear stories about families that restrict television for 2-3 years while children are at a critical stage in terms of preparing for the exams. It's a sacrifice it might put too much pressure on the children, but it is an indication of the commitment. I think across the whole country, everyone values education. You will not find any part of the country where someone isn't positive about education, keen to have the best possible education, and of course make sacrifices to support that. And finally, India actually has invested a great deal in education. Like many countries, it's recognized that the future competitiveness of its workforce depends in large part on education. And there has been significant pay increases to teachers, various initiatives, all fully and generously funded by the state. To the extent that the 24 states in India, let's say the federal government, some of the federal funding is so much that the states can't use it for the purpose it's meant to be used for. Their capacity to spend the money doesn't match the actual money available. But all too often, the gap between what India needs and what Indian families and students get is too great, and it's not closing fast enough. So I'll spend a moment talking about some of the problems and then a few suggestions, very briefly, about how India can tackle the problems unique to India, or the challenges unique to India. But overall, if we're discussing the problems, what's quite striking as an outsider is a reluctance to close with, discuss, and tackle really big issues. And I'm going to list some of these, which will be familiar to you. Firstly, it's astonishing that 53% of Indian children suffer sexual abuse. That's a figure that's out there, it's been researched, no one's disputed that figure. But if you look at Indian teacher training, the first people a young child will encounter as a representative of the state is a teacher. You would expect this to be a topic in Indian teacher training. You would expect the training to have some idea of how you identify children who might be underperforming because of factors outside the schoolroom. And some guidelines, which is actually quite standard in most teacher training programs, some guidelines on how to tackle it. It's not an issue that's discussed anywhere. And look, it's a shock horror number, 53%. In many countries, there is a figure, but it's not as high as 53%. Thank you. Like other places, teacher training is a problem. What is different about India is that effectively the people involved in teacher training have more or less given up. There's some wonderful people, there's some huge initiatives that look at improving teacher training, but these are very small scale. No one is trying to improve teacher training across the whole spectrum. There is a test for teacher eligibility, which is a central test, and when teachers were given that, in this last cycle, 1% of practicing teachers passed the test. If you have a professional body at that level of competence, anything else you try and do to reform the system is likely to encounter extremely strong headwinds. More awkwardly, the Indian demographic population shows there are 50 million girls who are missing from the population. This is an ugly, unpleasant issue, but there are 50 million females who do not exist in the Indian population. So we've had people talking yesterday, for example, about gender equity, and of course access to education is part of that. But if you have a cultural context where 50 million people disappear, it's either aborted or die soon after birth, you need to have a discussion that focuses on that topic. It doesn't apply across all states, by the way. There's some states which don't have any missing children, but there are others where the figure is extremely high. There's no schools inspections in India. This is a system where it's difficult to understand how you can commit to improvement if you don't gather some evidence to support that schools are actually improving. Again, back to the same point, in some schools, on any one day, 30 to 40% of the teachers simply don't turn up to work. These are the people delivering. You heard from Zachariah yesterday. He quoted that particular figure. These are things you really need to sort out before other reforms can take effect. Wayne's already mentioned tutoring. The previous speaker mentioned international benchmarking. India joined the PISA rankings, did poorly, and withdrew from PISA rankings. The story from my previous career is the British Army, the Canadians, and the Canadians in the room. Rather annoyingly, the Canadians invented a military competition, and all armies are very arrogant and confident. We participated in the competition and came last. As a professional army, we did worse than conscripts from other European armies. So we said we didn't take it seriously, we weren't really interested, it was just a bit of a joke. The next year, we did take it seriously. We came second last. The third year, we selected a team. They did nothing else for a year other than prepare for this competition. We still came second last. And our response in those days was to withdraw from the competition, which of course is a dumb thing to do. Militaries are hyper-competitive environments, and being afraid of competition is never a healthy thing. Unfortunately, that's the same consequence of withdrawing from the international benchmark. You don't know how well you're doing. In a global marketplace, your people don't compete within the borders of your country. They compete globally. And not to have an idea of how your education system is performing by international standards really doesn't make much sense. There is a hyper-competitive employment and higher education market in India. If you look at the board exams, the gold ticket, the ticket that gets you into a really credible university, is only won by 0.5% of students. 0.5%. But the whole system is geared to competing for those particular exams. That means, if you want to do the rather crude deduction, 99.5% of Indian students are going through a curriculum that doesn't satisfy their current or future needs. It's only the 0.5 get into the really elite universities. And employers, like in other parts of the world, find that when people do join them, they require a significant retraining program. So, in effect, if you want to be successful in India, you go to school, you get through the board exams, you go to university, you usually have to do a postgraduate degree, and then you start an internship with one of the successful employers. That's a lot of time that Indian students spend in education without necessarily getting the quality that you would expect. And finally, huge numbers of Indian children learn their second language. Huge numbers of teachers teach in their second language. This is an unbelievable thing. If you apply a system like that in the developed world, your educational system would probably collapse. It's not properly understood, it's not properly researched, and bridge, it's just assumed that people would be able to learn very quickly and effectively, and teach very quickly and effectively in their second language. It's not so. I think there needs to be more research and understanding of the challenges that need to be overcome in this particular area. Okay, as an educator, there's no point pointing to problems if you don't have solutions. Otherwise, you're just grumbling for the sake of grumbling. Can do better is not a helpful comment. Indicating how someone can do better, of course, is much better. And so here are some personal points. I think generally, there are 3 points that are general and then a number that are specific to India. All educational systems, I think, suffer from having short-term goals. Primary teachers in primary school would say these parents are terrible, children have come with no social skills, they don't even know how to feed themselves, and they have no interest in learning. Primary school teachers blame parents. Secondary school teachers blame primary school teachers. What were these people doing in primary school? We've got to start from scratch. People at university blame secondary school. These children have wasted their time, we've got to redo the whole thing. And of course, employers blame universities. The graduates joining us don't have the skills. It's very easy to get that factionalism in education. The key thing for education is you want people who have employment, you want people who have access to higher education, and you want people who can live as productive, contributing members of whatever society they happen to live in. And I think the focus needs to be, therefore, on the employment that education is equipping people for. I don't know very many cases now where people believe education is a means, an end into itself. It's always a means to an end, and that end, for most people, requires employment. So the focus needs to be on employment, and I think that applies to everywhere. You absolutely have to have better teachers. The crude, brutal fact is 90% of the people who are now teachers in the Indian system should not be teachers. They need to be replaced by better people. And of course, school leadership. Again, this is a general point. I'm not criticizing GEMS teachers, by the way. I think we get the pick of the crop. But across India, 90% of people who are currently teachers shouldn't be teachers. And school leadership needs to be better. I don't know of any sensible leadership training program for principals and other leaders, and we all need to do better. Very quickly, other recommendations. Firstly, after my earlier comments, not surprisingly, international benchmarking. It has to happen. Countries that have taken a good look at themselves, foremost of which I think is Germany, didn't like its position in the PISA rankings, reformed its educational system, and has climbed steadily up. That's the right approach, I think. I don't think you can change a huge educational system overnight. But what you can do is have flagship or beacon schools to demonstrate the art of the possible. So if you can't change 10,000 schools, change one. Show that with all the constraints, with all the challenges, with all the strengths, a better educational outcome is possible, and then feed those ideas. Again, this is a common sense sort of observation. I think there should be state competition. I think if you have one or two states that are really aggressive about reform, they should be allowed to go ahead and reform, and other states in India either learn lessons from them or do something different and potentially better. But I think a vanilla one-size-fits-all everywhere at once doesn't work in a country the size of... it works in Finland, by the way, but you could have 50 Finlands in one state in India and you wouldn't notice. Fourth, whatever you do, learn lessons from it, and then change. Reinforce success, curtail failure. One of the problems when you have a huge reform program, and my Indian colleagues will know about comprehensive continuous evaluation, the right to education, etc., etc. Be brutal about looking at the evidence of, is it working? And if it's working, do more of it. If it's not working, if it's not delivering the outcomes you want, do less of it. You heard Tony Blair speak on Thursday night. One of the problems with the reforms in the UK is when education started in 97, the politicians became trapped by the initiatives they took in 97, 98, and 99. And 10 years later, I spent about £500 million of British taxpayers' money on a skills program, which within 5 years we knew wasn't working, it wasn't contributing. But it had to wait for a change in government before those programs were turned on. So for 13 years, we squirted money at solutions that we knew weren't delivering. I don't think countries can tolerate 13 years of ineffective policy. So reinforce success, stop doing the things that don't work. And there needs to be multiple paths. I think many people have talked about this. The academic path is just one path to successful, productive lives. Indian parents will not want their children to be plumbers. Indian parents will be more than happy to listen to a narrative that says, your son or daughter can run a plumbing business, part of which might involve plumbing skills, but it also involves marketing, it also involves customer relations, it also includes a broader thing. So I think, and by the way, educators are really bad people to talk to about training and education. the people you should talk to are training and education employers. They're the people who actually use the skills and work back from that, rather than an educational system trying to develop a solution to a problem it doesn't really understand. I think I'll wrap up there, but just to say, I don't know of any country in the world where the gap between what could be done, what should be done, and what is being done is greater. It's a fantastic place to be involved in. Teachers and students are unbelievably inspiring, but we need to do better, because otherwise India will not achieve its potential and its proper stature as an internationally competitive country. Thank you.
Thank you, David. As usual, you've given us some wonderful challenges and thoughts that I'm sure we'll have questions about later. I'd like now to invite Jane, who's going to give us some insights on the Philippines.
Hi. You should answer hello when I say hi. Hi. Hello. In Malaysia, the class sizes are 30, right? In the Philippines, for a public school class size is about 60 to 70 students. So when the teacher comes in, she says, hi, and the students say, very good, children. So good morning, everybody. My name is Jane Liban, and I'm glad to see the Consul of the Philippines to the UAE. Sir, can you please stand up? Consul Giovanni Palek. No need to stand up, okay. So I'm here wearing two hats. I'm a participant to the Global Education and Skills Forum, and I'm also speaking about our foundation and the impact of the new changes in the Philippine education system. It's an exciting times in the Philippines right now, and our foundation is affected by these changes because we are in the technical education. My foundation is called Monark Foundation. We were established in 1997, so we're going on our 16th year this year. And our vision is to create opportunities for the less privileged Filipino youth, so they are provided skills and training so they become responsible citizens making a difference in society. Our courses are industry-driven, like what Mr. David said earlier. It's important that we talk to the industries, the employers, so that we know what their needs are and we respond to it. So right now we are doing courses on heavy equipment servicing. We're also doing courses on automotive servicing. We have a new course for female students called Industrial Office Management. And we also have operator training. We are an affiliate of Monark Caterpillar, the distributor of Caterpillar in the Philippines. So we have consulted Cat and Monark into doing and developing all this curriculum for our courses. Now, we have been doing PPP for the last 16 years. In fact, it was a driving force for us. So we partner with industries, and we also partner with the Technical Education and Skills Development, or TESDA, in the Philippines. And with our recent project called Technicians for the World, we have been providing technicians for different Caterpillar dealerships in Asia Pacific, and most recently in the UAE. So the UAE dealer called Al Bahar is our partner. We visited the Sharjah branch the other day, and tomorrow we will be visiting the Abu Dhabi branch. Hopefully we can go to Qatar to meet our graduates also, and just say hi and hello to them. The Technicians for the World is an eye-opener for all of us because we are a very small institute. We only produce 100 technicians every year. That's how highly skilled our course is. So the course is 2 years, and we produce CAT-certified technicians. And as you know, there's a big demand right now for these highly skilled technicians all over the world. And we're proud to contribute just a little bit in that big demand. Our employment rate right now is 92%, which is very high in the Philippines. And we want to reach at least 95% employment rate by next year. One of the key components in the holistic development of our graduates really is values formation. We are very, very serious about making our graduates value-laden workers for the world. And like Lina, one of the challenges we encountered really was the very low passing rate of our applicants. Out of 100 applicants, maybe 18 or 19 will pass the screening of Monark Foundation. And if you saw her statistics earlier, we're in the bottom of of the TIMSS international assessment tests. And this is why I said the new changes in the educational system of the Philippines really will provide a very big impact to what we do in Monarch Foundation. In 2009, we observed that most of our scholars fail in two prerequisite subjects. That's mechanical principles and mensuration. And as you know, these subjects are heavy with basic mathematics concepts. And then we also noticed that our students were having a hard time understanding the manuals and the modules that are provided, which are all in English. So what we did was we created a bridge program. So when they enter Monarch Foundation on their first year, there's a 30-minute refresher course on math and English before the day starts. So that, I guess, addressed what we thought was lacking in the basic education system. So from 12% attrition rate, we're now down to 2% attrition rate per year after we introduced that bridge program. So we are very excited with the new K-12 program of the government. And I am a big supporter of this move. In fact, whenever there's an opportunity to attend consultation meetings and technical working meetings, I make sure that I attend these meetings. Before this major change in the educational system, the Philippines is one of the very few remaining countries with 10 years of basic education. Now we're moving to K-12, so that's adding 3 more years, 1 in kindergarten and then another 2 years in senior high school, which is very good. In Lina's report also, the challenges are the same. Malaysia and the Philippines, I guess we have the same challenges as far as education is concerned. But as you all know, the biggest export of the Philippines are our overseas workers. So we have to make sure that our educational standards is at par with the global standards. That's a challenge to the Filipinos. What can we do? We're friendly, we're helpful, we're industrious. I am holding the microphone, so nobody can say otherwise. So in general, the region has the same challenges, but I think the Philippines is on the right track in creating changes that will really impact the way our graduates perform globally. And I thank all the stakeholders, the Department of Education, the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, Commission on Higher Education of the Philippines. ADB is also helping us through, and GEMS also is helping us through ADB in this efforts. We also did the new Philippine Qualifications Framework, and I'm going to show you the slide. Oh, this is the K-12 timeline. Can you read it from the back? No, so that means I have to explain it? Okay. So this is the K-12 timeline. So from 2011 to 2014, the implementation of grade 7 to kinder to grade 12 curriculum will be designed. The curriculum will be designed. And then from 2014 to 2016, there will be modeling and migration. We should be sure that the basic education law is passed. But we have already ratified the basic education law, and we're only waiting for the president to sign it. I'm not sure if he has signed it. Has he signed it, sir? Not yet. So maybe he's still reviewing it. So there will be modeling. Right now, there's a model school down south in Davao and in the University of Makati. So we're even ahead of schedule for the K-12 timeline. And phase 3, from 2016 to 2020 will be the complete migration from the 10-year basic education to the 12-year K-12 education system. And then phase 4 is, so this year they will be monitoring closely what's happening. And then on the phase 4, by 2021, there will be a complete implementation of K-12 after they have recommended improvements or reforms in the system. The next slide, this is what I was talking about earlier, the Philippine Qualifications Framework. So this leveling defines what will happen to a graduate of K-12. So there's level 1 and level 2. Level 2 will be taken up during the last 2 years of basic education. That's grades 11 and 12. And then after that, level 3, which is under the technical education system. So there will be national certificates 3, 4, and diploma courses for those who graduated the 12th year of basic education. And then the students can now take degrees if they wish to take higher education. After graduation from senior high school, they can take a baccalaureate degree. So they graduate level 6, and then post-baccalaureate, and then doctoral and postdoctoral degrees. So this completes the system, the K-12 system. After taking the basic education, the students can now choose what path or what track they want to take. And this is going to be very helpful for Filipinos who want to, make it internationally, globally, or even just in the Philippines. This defines it. So thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody who came in. And I'll see some questions. If I can answer them later. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane, for those insights into the Philippines. And around the world, countries are focusing on education because of the recognition of the global economy and the implications for future generations. And the Philippines obviously is a place where lots is happening. Our final speaker before we go to questions is Chancellor Lee from Kaywon University. He'll tell us a few things about what's happening in South Korean education. Thank you, Chancellor.
Good morning, everybody. I really appreciate to the Global Education and Skills Conference and GEMS Education and of their global vision to support the better education. And Sunny Varkey, the founder of GEMS and Varkey Foundation, mentioned about that his vision for the future of this conference is Davos of education. I hope it will come true quite soon. And so And also at the plenary session of Dr. Zakaria, he mentions that political stability and globalization and also technological development made us possible to global cooperation in many different areas, including education. So I would like to share our experience with you to make the better education worldwide. And today, I would like to introduce how the education contribute the development of Korea and what is the social issues right now. And the Economist, the very prestigious maybe economic journalism, praised the Korean economy just recently. Usually journalism is very critical to everything, but generously they praise the Korean economy. Yes, last 50 years, Korean GDP goes 300 times. And 1960s, our GDP was $70, but nowadays, $21,000. So it's a huge development. And also trading volume goes up to 2,000 for last 50 years, from $478 million to $1 trillion. And Korea's economy is largely dependent upon the trading. And size of export-import is 7th in the world. And in the year of 2010, Korea is one of the fastest growing economy in the world. But in 1950s, we don't have anything. Because of Korean War, everything was destroyed at that time. So we didn't have any hope for the future. But maybe only thing we have was the human capital. So we try to educate our people to develop our countries from nothing to the more wealthy country right now. And this is my pictures of 50 years ago. You can imagine the living conditions there. And anyway, the Korea's success is largely dependent upon leadership, passion, diligence, and innovative people, and also culture, and also education, I believe. And maybe great political leaders and business leaders made wonderful industries, and most of them are global companies right now. And also sometimes very innovative and very brave business people, just only with one aerial photo and also our bill that displays the historic turtle ship. And Mr. Jung Ju-young, he brought these two pictures and note, and he goes to London, and he met the bank and also shipping companies, and he get the construct shipbuilding orders and also the loans together, just his vision and these two photographs. And finally, in 2 years, he made wonderful shipbuilding yard, and this is #1 in the world right now. And also very innovative, and maybe several hundreds of engineers cannot solve the problem to finish the sea dike, but by using the retired ship, he can finish just a second. Maybe this is one of the characters of innovative business people in Korea, and also LG. And nowadays, Korean pop music is quite popular, and it influenced a lot to make more Korean brand. And also equal opportunity for the women. Maybe last month, new president, the first woman president inaugurated in Korea. And in the education area, women has equal opportunities. Sometimes man is always defeat to women. So nowadays, more prosecutors are appointed, women prosecutors appointed than male prosecutors. So it is a big difference in Korean society. But one of the most driving factors for the Korean economy is definitely education. So at the beginning, the educational agenda in the past was the motivating the people to develop their competencies for the national prosperity. So maybe in the history, for the first time in the whole world, we made the Charter of National Education. So when I was young, every people in Korea should memorize this charter. So it motivates people to be educated. So that's one of the responsibility of the people. So that was 1968. Due to this kind of movement in Korea, at the beginning of the education, it was a public-private partnership. So by the year of 2012, in Korea, primary and secondary education, number of public schools is 9,784, and private schools are 1,595. But in case of tertiary education, more private university than public university. Especially in the higher education, 80% is private. Only 20% is occupied by government. So that means that to make a fast development of a country, government cannot provide all the resources. So government invite private sectors to enter the education. So it was quite successful in Korea. And currently, almost 10 million students at the school in primary, secondary, and higher education. And especially in higher education, we have 3 million students right now. So several times, President Obama mentioned about the success of the Korean education. And so maybe it means that anyway, Korea made a great success in education, but we also have many great sides in education too. Quite recently, OECD support CNN to make their own special reports on education, strong performers and successful reformers in education. You can easily search these old documentaries in YouTube. In many different countries, including Finland or China, Shanghai, and also Canada and other countries. So maybe it's a fairly long documentary. So I just screen snapshots of these videos. Drivers for the success of Korean education is maybe the parents' passion, like India and other Asian countries, and they want their kids go to the better schools. So there are many passions. Because of that reason, there are very fierce competition. So this makes another problems in the education too. So educational agenda, not the past, right now is reduction of inequality in education using information and communication technologies. Because of the very high competition to get into better universities, and many of Korean students having their extracurricular educations, private education. So every household spent very much money on that. So one of the government goals is how to reduce such kind of extracurricular education. And one of the reasons is because of that kind of extracurricular education, maybe public education is maybe harmed, and also there are inequality in the families. So Korean government has the initiative of smart education by the year of 2015, and so we try to digitalize all the educational contents. So we change our educational environment, and also it gives more active participation of students in the education. In the conventional form of education is tutoring, but new environment provide student can get involved very actively in the classes. So, and also we put more 21st century necessary contents in our new educational curriculums. And also digital textbook project is another project to overcome such kind of difficulties in education areas. So we also started the cyber home learning system, which helps the economically the difficult families. And so digital textbook and cyber home learning system can solve the problems. In many research says that cyber home learning is like this, and so already we developed so many digital contents. So just translating or customizing to another countries, we can share this kind of already developed systems. So quite recently we met GEMS Education. So we are quite fascinated with their networks and capability. So with cooperation with GEMS Education, we would like to transfer these kind of ideas to rest of the world. And the survey says that the last two periods, 110 elementary school adopt this kind of educational environment, showed that improvement in the academic performances of students using digital textbooks. So another issue is current PPPE in Korea. And you already know Teach for America. The similar organization has established in Korea too. So many allied students voluntarily gather together and to support the student who have the bad family economies. And so it made a good support for the economically difficulty family students. And also another PPP with other countries. Myself had get involved in the establishment of the National Polytechnic Institute of Cambodia. And Korean government support the Cambodia to establish the wonderful university there by ODA, Official Development Assistance. At the beginning, it's a turnkey project. So we just established the school, and then we give the keys to the Cambodian government. But unfortunately, Cambodian government don't have enough resources to operate this university. So we suggest to the Cambodian government as a private university, we are the managing partner for this university. So we design every curriculums and university industry cooperations, and we are making new business plans for this university. And successfully, we had an entrance ceremony at 2005, and we made 2-year and also 4-year and very short-term courses. And nowadays, it has 3,000 students, and financially very sustainable universities are done. So we are quite proud. This is a very good resources for the development of Cambodia, and most of graduates of NPIC get the job in Cambodia. So I think it is a very good model of PPPE with private sectors, with public sectors. And another new trend in Korea is reduction of study abroad of primary and secondary education. In the year of 2006 in Korea, 30,000 kids go abroad for their international education in United States or Australia, Canada, and rest of the world. But nowadays, the number of students go abroad is abruptly decreasing. There are several reasons, maybe economic reasons, and also another reason is most of students are not well adjusted to the new cultural environment. So more and more parents want those kind of globalized educations in Korea. So there is a very niche new educational market in Korea. So our university also cooperate with GEMS Education. We try to expand this kind of new areas. Kaywon Education Foundation has several schools, maybe middle school, high school, and also art schools together. And this foundation has been established by the industries. One of the leading hospitality industry group, Paradise Group in Korea. And we are planning Atlantis resort-like thing in Korea, near to the Yeongjong airport. And anyway, the new president of Korea announced that the future of Korea is largely dependent upon the creative economy. So our school hope to educate the leaders which meet with the creative economies. So artists and designers can be a great role in the creative economic era. So we provide students about creativity and imaginations. And so we provide wonderful environment to nurture their creativity. So most of our students, after graduation, they get jobs at many different innovative companies, and also many of them as independent artists, they provide inspiration to the other side of the principles. So this is a very brief introduction of Korean education, and this is our authentic guest house in our campus. Thank you very much.
Thank you to our panel members for that brief overview of their countries. I'm sure it's generated a lot of questions in our audience, so I'd like to open it up for questions at this point in time.
My first question is directed to Lady Jane Liban, who is director of Monark of Philippines. I'm a doctor. The very framework of education in your country, I think, with the presentation what I did my out, is inclined towards engineering and politics. What about the doctors? How do you go up to +2? Is the same framework?
Can we just show?
Now somebody wants to go for medicine up to +2. How will you go?
There are 4 pathways that was identified for the K to 12. Yes, it's the sciences and engineering pathway. So the +2 will be here. So they will be taking the extra sciences and engineering, the basic engineering courses there. And then another pathway is in the creative arts, similar to Korea. Creative and performing arts. And then there's a tech voc pathway, the technical vocational pathway, and then the business and entrepreneurship pathway. So it's the student's choice what pathway he should take, and then it goes in this framework.
Your pathways are more inclined for the industrial oriented. What about the medicine?
Yes, there's a science pathway also. So if the student wants to take medicine or engineering or nursing, then he or she will take the pathway that's inclined to that career.
Stream for that?
Yes, it's a stream. It's a stream.
Okay.
This one here.
Okay. My second question is Chancellor, Mr. Namsik. Yes. In your presentation,
Yes.
while framing the policy of the country,
Yeah.
you rightly said leadership is number one.
Yes.
Education comes the last.
No. Just I
No, you have
list
to
up.
just reject it like that. That's
Yeah.
what.
Yes.
See, I think the latest theory of leadership relating to Harvard law, very recent, Harvard Business Review, just 6 months. Now we all scientists from the world have come to a conclusion that for leadership, it is very essential to have the quality of level 5 leadership, means a will with humility. And education, your entire education has got a component, I think called values, to create emotional intelligence, humility in the education system, so that you can create good leaders for your country. You have put imagination, culture, so fine.
Yeah.
But what about the value-oriented humility? Morality and everything that combines to.
Yeah, like you mentioned that I listed several factors of success factors, but there are no priority on that. I just list up. But maybe education is one of the most important things. The reason is leadership also the big part of the education. So maybe I just very briefly, education is a very huge agenda, so I just briefly
I request you,
yes,
because I'm working in this field, to put, the development of a skill of emotional intelligence among the children, because as per the latest research, all top leaders of the world have got a cognitive knowledge only up to 27%, rest 73%.
Yes.
See if you can put this component in education system.
I think the environment of Korea is a little bit different from United States, UK, or other side of the world. The reason is at the beginning of our industrialization, we don't have any resources. So maybe it is inevitable of high competition and very high passion. And so we, in some sense, our education looks like have some deficiency in maybe humanitarian side, but I don't think so. Sometimes we learn from deficiencies. So maybe the well-developed country and very wealthy country, many students don't have big motivation because already they have. But in our situation, everybody don't have anything, so they have a lot of passions, and maybe that's one of the curse to develop our country. But we worry very much about our education, so we try to heal some kind of deficiencies in our education. So one of the key role is teacher's role. So we try to educate and train the teacher to be more concerned of emotional side. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before I take the next question here, to Jane talk about pathways and the changes happening in the Philippines. I did hear that they were considering, as part of the new curriculum, having up to 50% of 11 and 12 as vocational education in schools. Are you able to comment very quickly? Is that still the case? Is that the intention? Or?
I think it's more than 50%. No, but really, as I said, one of the biggest exports of the Philippines are skilled workers, and we would like to be globally competitive in that area. That's why the focus really is on skills education. And so the Tech Voc pathway, they're very serious about the numbers that will be taking the Tech Voc pathway. It's not really defined yet, but I'm hearing yes, 50% or more will be taking the Tech Voc pathway.
Thank you. Please, one here first.
My name is Fatima Martin, and my question is to Mr. David Wilson, Director of Schools GEMS. India ranks the second last of the 73 countries in the PISA ranking. But however, of the 100,000 graduates from the Indian Institute of Technologies, the statistics reveal that 25,000 of them are employed in the US, usually by the IT giants, and it's a regular recruitment from Microsoft or Google or General Electric year on year from the Indian pool of talent. And also to mention that at least 8% of the top innovators recognized by MIT year on year are Indians or of Indian origin. And this is in wide contrast with the PISA rankings. And teaching and learning, you mentioned, which does exist even in India, even today, which is taught in the second language, in analogy to college education in Germany, where most graduate courses, even engineering courses, is taught in German. And India now also has a Right to Education Act. So given all of this, if India is on the path to progress in education, given the huge democratic secular republic that it is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you find it now? Your comments.
Education obviously is a deeply personal thing, so you can quote national figures, but the meaningful figure is what happens to a child, boy or girl, in terms of achieving their potential as they go through. And so when I mentioned earlier about India being profligate with the talent of its people, its human capital, it's the overall figures are many, many children don't get the opportunity to achieve their potential. You can always pick out the headline figures, and India is blessed with enormous human capital talent. So people will succeed despite the system. There will always be people who, because of something in them, because of the support of their family, will, however bad the system, will always achieve great success. But nationally, the system needs to be changed so that more people achieve their potential. So the highlight is excellent education in India. It's in pockets, families can pay for it, there's a lot of tutoring that goes on, some of which is very good. But for the average citizen, the average town or village in India, provision of education is not what it needs to be. And the rising tide of improving the system lifts everything. You always get the brilliant people coming through. The UK educational system, for example, is going backwards now. The UK, the top 5% of students in the UK have always been globally competitive and will always be globally competitive. But nationally, it's that rising tide, having a better system that gives more people the chance to fulfill their potential. So if you ask me, on the scale of 1 to 10, where is India? I would say, in terms of achieving its human potential, probably 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Next question here.
I have a question for our second speaker also. Okay, just now you mentioned about the issues of training and education. If you want to ask about training and education, you said you have to ask the employers, not the educators. So as an educator myself, working in a national university, I just want to know, maybe you can explain a little bit more why you are suggesting this. Because you see, if you ask the employers, meaning the industries, their main interest will be economics driven. So the humanistic values might be the secondary or third or the last. So can you please explain why you mentioned employers instead of educators?
Yes, I did mention that our school is industry driven. We really consult companies, what are the skills that you need? Because if we don't produce the right skills, then nobody will take our graduates. So that explains why we are very serious about talking to industries, what skills do you need for this particular course, and if it has upgraded, then we will also upgrade our curriculum the way that they want our graduates to be. So it has to be a complete skill set, even the values that they need, the attitudes that they need. We have leadership skills training, we have life skills training in our small school to make sure that even the values formation and the attitudes of the students are well covered in whatever it is that the employers are asking from us. But I have very high respect for educators. I love our trainers. We have like 16 trainers in the school, so the ratio is more or less 22 is 10:1. And because we have also other short course training programs, we make sure that they attend upgrading and other learning experiences in other industries. We have immersions. We make sure that our trainers are well immersed in the new technologies that are introduced in the industry. So that was really my point when I said we were industry driven. Thank you for your question.
We're short of time, so just a few more very short questions if you can keep them very succinct. I have one here.
My question is to Chancellor Lee. So you mentioned about the progress Korea has made in education. I just wanted to know how the economy has been, because you have done so well in education, how it has impacted on entrepreneurship in your country. Because still I feel the economy is controlled by 5 big industrial giants.
Yes. I think maybe the worldwide 5 big conglomerates are known very well, but without the small, medium-scale industries, it is not existing. So we don't have enough chance to introduce all the aspects of Korea, but in case of higher education, maybe still we provide lots of R&D personnel and also the students who are quite matched with the industry necessities. So in Korea, every university has a lot of good relationship with industry. So university cooperation is quite important. So we try to revise our curriculum depending upon the necessity of the industries and other area of social necessities. So very naturally, we transform our education to the necessity of the society, and so that makes one of the factors of Korean success, I believe. Yes.
Yeah. My name is Venkat. I am from educationforall.info. I have a question regarding the Indian perspective. The talk was more on the urban side. The urban poor was not touched upon, and the rural education has not been touched upon. And there are areas wherein the people over here who are educators, how they can contribute to the improvement to the rural poor and the urban poor in terms of education.
Can I understand the question as how can people here with our background contribute there? I think this is part of the Vaki Gems Foundation and other CSR-linked initiatives, and I think probably the best way of making a contribution is for our leaders, our teachers, to have a twinning program with schools in their area, the area they live in or come from, their place of origin. But it always has to be done in quite a sensitive way, and it needs to be mediated with the community, because if you just take a classroom in a box, for example, and put it into a rural area, it has novelty value, but does it actually change learning outcomes? Does it improve learning, teaching and learning? And the answer with most of these initiatives, it probably doesn't. If the generator fails, they can't afford another generator, and the laptop never gets used again, or whatever else. So I think understanding the needs of the community understanding the constraints on the teaching professional there, and supporting it in a sympathetic way, but with very high expectations. The people, my colleagues in the Asian schools, know that I use a test called the Ramanujan test. You may be familiar with the story of Ramanujan, who's the best mathematician of the 20th century, discovered by fluke. And the test is, if a 5-year-old Ramanujan walked into our schools, would that person flourish or fail? You can deal with the maths, you can deal with the big numbers, but you also have to recognize every student is an individual with particular talents. And it might be in one of these rural schools, which is the story of Ramanujan's origins, you have someone who could be a Nobel Prize winner, who could contribute to the global educational field. And even if you identify one every 10 years, that's a very good return. And I'm sure there are many Ramanujans in India now, today. I'm sorry that's not a clear answer, but...
My question's for the Director of GEMS in India as well. I've been going to a lot of rural places in India. I also go to Jumeirah College, a GEMS school, but I try and volunteer in rural schools in India, and I do see that you said that motivation's something that's there, which isn't a problem in India because they value education so much, and state funding and federal funding isn't a problem. But you said that it doesn't cater to 99.5% of the population, that the system doesn't really address the majority. But what are the fundamental problems? Not just what are the causes for those problems that lack? Is it political accountability, or is it what are the steps that the government needs to take to really initiate those reforms?
Sorry, I didn't get your name.
Madhav Sharma.
One of the indicators of success will be, you're in Jumeirah College now? Would you like to be a teacher? One of the successes, one of the times we will know we're being successful is when bright young men and women like you want to enter the teaching profession. That will be a real indicator that something is turned, and the talent India has is helping to grow the talent India needs. And that means young men and women like you viewing a teaching profession not just as having social value, but also having personal and economic value to you. So you asked her, what are the causes of the problem? I touched on some of them. I think, actually, to a certain extent, it's a bit futile to dwell too much on the problems. You should discuss them, you should understand them, and they'll keep changing. As the world changes, as global competition continues, you'll find that the problems and successes of a decade ago are no longer relevant today. I mean, one of the problems, for example, with higher education is a lot of people go into IT and the employment market moves on. The IT factory is still churning people out, and then it becomes mechanical engineering, then it becomes something else. It will always evolve, and therefore you always need to keep evolving to match it. But I don't think focusing on the problems or the political accountability or that sort of thing really is actually that healthy. The more important thing is to start experimenting with solutions. And you really won't know. You can spend a decade planning a perfect school and a perfect educational system, but actually you won't know if it's good until you do the whole thing and people start getting churned out at the other end. And reinforce success. If a school model is working, if people are bursting through into university and highly attractive to employers, you know you've got a success. Just do more of it. And with a country like India, the model will not work everywhere. What works in the rural areas will be different to what works in the tier 3 cities, different to the large metropolitan cities. So you probably need multiple models, and there'll be state-by-state variation too. But I think market forces, the private sector, experimentation is where we will find the success stories, the solutions. Okay.
Our final question, unfortunately, we're running out of time.
Good morning. My name is Kamar Zaman, and I'm the Secretary Education in Pakistan. My question is for Dr. Noorzalina, and I wish to begin by complimenting the work of our organization and amongst the many achievements that have been made over the years, she talked of an issue in which more work, she says, needs to be done, and that is about the ethnocentric schools. My question is, as to what's being done to create more homogeneous environment and more homogeneous community schools, and is that getting corrected? And is there also a difference in the standards of teaching? I mean, the standards, while the curriculum may be the same, the standards of teaching in these various ethnic schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the compliment. Basically, we realize that there's the ethnocentric schools that's happening here, all right? There might be a division there, but the government has trying to tackle it by saying that primary school, you can go with the national and national type school. That's the Chinese or the Indian school, and then the national schools that's basically the Malaysia in. But when they enter secondary school, it all has to be under one roof. That's the requirement that they have. And also they have to follow the national curriculum. That's very important for us. So every school has to follow that. Like for Mara, we follow the national curriculum, but we also offer IGCSE to the students, and we also offer a Quranic aspect of things. There are Quranic schools also. So these students are taking all these three things. And as for, we also have one type of school where we call the visionary school, where we have all the three Malay, Chinese, and Indian school in one compound, so that they might follow different academic teaching there, but when it comes to co-curricular activity, they are together. Okay, and then another one, the standards of teaching, I would say, it varies a lot. In the sense that how you play, the importance that you play on what is important in education. The Ministry of Education, everything is important there, but you have to take into account there's 10,000 schools. There's 500,000 of teachers there. You know, how to get it, how to make sure that everybody is well trained. With my organization, we have 6,000 teachers there. We make it a policy that for every year, the teachers have to attend at least 5 training, CPD. That's compulsory for them. And then we also have a career succession plan where they are encouraged, after their first degree, they're encouraged to take up their master's and the PhD, and this is sponsored by the agency. And we also place an important, like for me, for example for me, that we work with various universities to find the best practices. And we make sure that we send our teachers to these places. Like for GEMS, we have a collaboration with GEMS where we send our principals. We're sending our principals to GEMS schools in Dubai and also in Cornwall. So these are the things that, you know, we believe that CPD, continuous professional development, is important in making sure that the education system is successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Noor. Unfortunately, time has run out. Just some information for the 10:30 sessions coming up. The Fostering Global Citizenship roundtable will be in the Silk Room. The Curriculum Reform and Industry Needs group will be here in this room at 10:30. And the Entrepreneurship Education and School Reform will be next door for those people. Could I thank you for your attendance and your participation, and a big thank you for our forum members for the information. Thank you.